a life-altering disability, infidelity, and unconditional love. Today, you will hear a story of determination, hurt, and healing. Today, you will hear about how one man's story to stay altered the course of my life. Welcome to this segment of Contagious Courage with Vahen King. Yeah, so that's right. It's you and I today.
It is us today.
It is us. My husband, Vaughan King. Today, I wanted to shine a light on you. And I know you don't like the spotlight and that you like to be behind the camera and whatever. But I wouldn't be here today without you. And
probably wouldn't be here without you.
Well, you know, it is a together thing. I want to tell people what our relationship is like because people know me and like all like hi all the time. So I always describe our relationship like flying a kite, right? I always say I'm the kite.
Sure, and I hold on to the rope and see where it goes, or at least try to keep her grounded somewhat.
Exactly. But yeah, so that's the dynamics of our relationship. But sweetheart, why don't you tell everybody what you do for me, like behind the scenes?
I just said, well, maybe we need to get a little bit better quality of a camera, and next thing you know, we got a few lights, and then we have a few tripods and a couple different angles, and then we get some video editing software, and next thing you know, it kind of spirals out of control.
It spirals out of control, absolutely. And I'm like, the first time I saw the setup, I was nervous in my own studio. I'm like, what? But just thank you for everything that you do behind the scenes to make these segments happen. It's the only reason I have a story to tell, the only reason I'm doing these segments of courage is because you believed in me and you stayed. And because of your courage to stay is the only reason that I'm able to be here today. And so I wanted to honor you and thank you for all your support and keeping me grounded. Please allow me to share with you an interview that we did back in 2016 when we were on Heart Matters.
Back in Newfoundland?
Yeah, yep. Back in Newfoundland. So let's take a look. Hi, my name is Vahen King, and this is my husband, Vaughan King.
When I met Vahen, I was in Peterborough, and I felt that she was different. She was kind of like, I don't know, I just felt like, yeah, you were the one, right? Or something along those lines. Anyways, we had by the time I met her, it had been, she told me that she had 3 weeks before she was going back to Newfoundland. And I was kind of shocked, but we had this whirlwind romance. It was about 3 weeks long, and then she left for Newfoundland. Now she decided that she probably would never see me again. And that's not what I decided.
Yeah, no,
I decided perhaps maybe I will, keep in contact, and so we did. And through a bunch of phone calls, emails, letters, and stuff like that, I ended up coming back to visit in Newfoundland. And then I eventually convinced her to come back to Peterborough. So it wasn't long after that I proposed, and we were engaged.
1 week later was when our journey took a change that we never expected. It was on a Sunday, 1 week to the day of when we said that we wanted to start a new life together. I was getting ready for church because I wanted to show off my new ring and tell our friends that we had just gotten engaged. And I started having some extreme pain in my upper chest area and arms. And I remember calling my mother and explaining to her the pain that I was having, and I was crying, and they actually thought that I was having a heart attack. And so anyway, I got Vaughan on the phone, and he immediately called the ambulance. So hanging up the phone with my mom, getting to the hospital within 12 hours, I was fully paralyzed, from the chest down. And I started losing feeling, and they wheeled me immediately into the Emerge. And because each 15 minutes that they would do like a test to test my reflexes, it would get less and less. So that's where they said that they thought they were going to lose me, and they had life support available. But then while this is all going on, my parents are talking to my pastor, who had said to them, The doctors are saying that it doesn't look very good. You can come, but just know that your daughter might not be alive when you arrive. And like, I was just, Vaughan and I were trying to, just get through the day and wonder what that looks like, and not even realizing that my parents are like in great distress, I imagine, driving across the country, not knowing if their daughter is going to be alive when they got there. Through that week of being bombarded with like tests and doctors and, saying that, Vienna doesn't look like she's ever going to walk again. She's going to need full-time care. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I just got engaged. Do I still have a fiance? So I knew that I had to, I just knew that I had to let him know that this new information about me not ever maybe I won't ever walk again. And would he still want me?
Just because something bad happened to Vahen doesn't mean that I had to give up on her or change my plans, kind of thing. She was still the bubbly person that I knew, even though she was scared. And I just said, no, honey, God gave you to me, and I'm not going to give you back now.
When we think about a life together as a newlywed, trying to deal with Nell being a person with a disability and a wife. Am I going to be a good wife? Is this going to work out and whatnot? But we knew we were going to work on this together, and that was all that mattered. Somewhere along the way, though, like even early on, we heard, well, maybe you don't have enough faith. That's why you're not healed. Or maybe there's sin in your life and those kind of things. And I was born and raised that I knew God was a loving God, and but where did I start believing those things about God? And I allowed other people's views of God to sink into my heart. Those lies started to change my view of God, and I started to become a little bit upset, and then that upset turned into anger and then bitterness, until finally that little girl who loved and served God with all her heart was this person who I didn't even recognize.
Nothing that I had ever been prepared for ever prepared me for this kind of a situation, the emotions that we had to deal with. I just kind of told her, I said, you know what, be strong. Don't worry, things will get better, and not really listening, but more just like trying to help her overcome the crying portion of the conversation.
Yeah, I cried a lot.
So
it just came to the point where I stopped trying to communicate, and he was okay with that because he didn't like the emotion of it. So eventually we just became like roommates in our own home. I started, leaning on other people for help, and eventually, my compromises in my marriage and in my walk with the Lord led me to infidelity.
Vahen finally broke down and told me about that. It kind of shook me, I felt betrayed. I felt just a shock, and I basically said, listen, you know what, I need space, I need time to think about this, I need to be able to process it, and I said, I'll call you in 3 or 4 days. I went home to be with my parents. I didn't even see this coming, I didn't even realize that things had gone so bad, and but I knew that God had given her to me for a reason. I looked back at who she was, and I knew who she had been, and I knew that now this is not the same woman, and there were some changes that happened along the way, and I can't blame it all on the wheelchair and transverse myelitis, and it was just a lack of communication on our part, and so basically I just, after 3 or 4 days, I called you back, and we went out and we talked for hours. We didn't fix everything right away, but we definitely decided that we were going to go ahead with trying to repair our marriage. We made some big decisions. We were going to start over, start fresh.
Vaughan and I had many tough conversations, as he said, but the key for me was that he never threw it in my face at all. He never made me feel like that unlovable, unforgivable person. We talked through those tough times, and he was so loving through it all, and yeah, like I could see him hurt, and I didn't know how to fix it, but God showed me grace through you, and that is something that I'll never ever be able to repay or to thank God enough for. We went to visit friends of ours, and I was sharing with her, I'm like, oh no, we were in the same youth group and we were in the same church, loved the Lord together, and now I'm going to tell her that I'm this terrible person. Vaughan decided to stay with me, but look at how bad I was, and I made all these bad choices, and now I'm like this bitter and angry person, you know. When we talked, she was talking about the things of the Lord, as she always does, and I just started to cry. I'm like, I wish I felt that again. I wish that was me. And she says, Vahen, no, I still see that person that loves God. You're just hurting. And that was just really great to hear, but I was still angry. And she said, you know what, Vahen? She said, I'm going to pray for you. She said, I'm going to pray for your heart, and I'm going to pray for your healing. And I was like, well, you can pray for me, but I said, you know, good luck with that kind of thing. And that night when I went home, I had a dream that I had missed it and that I couldn't have God in my life anymore. And it gripped my heart so bad. I woke up, I'm like, God, I don't care about a healing. I don't care. I'm like, I never want to doubt you again. I don't want to be this angry and bitter person. If there's ever any chance for me to overcome what I'm going through, please, you're going to have to grip my heart. And then he started reminding me of that little girl in Carter's Cove that just loved the Lord. He reminded me of the time when I got the call on my life when he wanted me to go into the ministry. He started downloading the love that I had for Vaughan when we first said I do, and just reminding me that he used Vaughan to show his grace to me, and he just flooded my heart with feeling that I hadn't felt in like years. I believe that the Lord did honor that prayer, because like the joy that the Lord has replaced when I'm sharing about that person, that time in my life, our life, when we walk through that, I really feel like it's so far removed from what God has done. Like he's totally redeemed me. He's totally sanctified me. He's totally set me free. And I no longer struggle with that. Not because Vahen and Vaughan had been strong enough to make it through. It was because God came in and we allowed him to change our lives.
In our lives, we needed to have God as a foundation, because without that, we wouldn't have been able to continue doing some of these other things. They would have fallen apart over time. You have to have a willingness to be committed and a willingness to work through struggles. Sometimes it's tough, but it is worth it, right? The other thing is to make sure that you have really good communication with your partner, because a lot of times you stop listening and then you stop caring and then you just fall apart. We found the farther that we went away from God, the more our relationships fell apart and started to dissolve. And the more we were connected with God, the more we had hope, we had love, and we just had a more positive outlook on life.
God placed the desire to write about this, not because we wanted to share about all this stuff that's in our closets, but it's because he said, Vahen, you know what it is to be broken. You know what it is to walk through some pain, to feel unworthy, to feel unloved. But more than that, it's because you know the other side of your pain is healing, freedom, and that's why you have a story to share, because people out there need to know that you can overcome this. Transverse myelitis may have took my independence and set me on a path that I would never have chosen, but through all of what has happened, we have developed a deeper dependency on the Lord that we would never change for anything. And so thank you for allowing me to highlight you this way today. It's an honor for me to be able to do that, because I wouldn't have a story without you. You know, and all that's left to say, thank you so much for joining us on this segment of Contagious Courage with Vahen King. And I want to say, not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to you and what?
His glory.
Goes all the glory and honor for your unfailing love and faithfulness. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
And all that's left to say is...
You said not to say this.
Oh, no, I need to intro it. Okay. I know, I'm not very good at asking the questions.
No, there's no question there at all.
There's no question.